Work on this sketch began on thick paper of 1.1 format. I used a simple HB2 pencil, soft enough to easily convey lines but not too greasy, so that the drawing would remain neat at the construction stage. I kept an eraser nearby. It is not uncommon to have to correct the first steps. In the first stage, I outlined the basic structure of the scene. I started with marking. With a light hand, I outlined verticals and horizontals for the walls and objects in the interior to set the perspective. Next, I outlined the central figure, a large oval for the head, the center line of the face, and the line of the shoulders. With rough lines, I set the main masses of the body and furniture, focusing on proportions. I paid special attention to the position of the hands, table, and objects in the background. They are set schematically, but already fixed the overall composition. At this point, the drawing still seems empty, but this is where the structure is laid. In the second stage, I began working on detailing. I drew the face, eyes, nose, lips, trying to maintain symmetry and a characteristic expression. I added hair and details of clothing. I drew an additional picture on the t-shirt to enhance the sense of liveliness of the scene. I also worked on the background in more detail. I specified the shape of the objects on the table and added a frame with an image on the wall. The lines became clearer. I removed the auxiliary grid and unnecessary sketchy strokes with an eraser. It was important to watch the lightness of the hand. Too much pressure at this stage spoils the work, especially if you need to make adjustments. The sketch is ready for further work. You can add shadows, color, or leave it in linear graphics. The work is done with acrylic paints on thick paper of 1.1 format. I used water to dilute the paints. I worked with 3 brushes, a thin one for small details, a medium one for the main shapes, and a slightly larger medium one for large fills in the background. First of all, I worked on the background, walls, windows, furniture. I applied acrylic with quick, confident strokes to preserve the lively texture of the surface. Then I moved on to working on the figure. I painted the hair with a medium brush. Dynamic strokes of bright shades of orange and yellow allowed me to convey volume and movement. I painted the face and hands with a thin brush to carefully draw the features and give the work character. I paid special attention to small details, the inscriptions on the t-shirt, the drawings on the glass, the accessories. Here I worked with a thin brush, almost dry, so as not to blur the lines. The final touches are clarifying the shadows, working out the highlights on the skin and hair, slightly refining the textures on the table and in the background. He worked in layers, letting the paints dry to avoid dirt and mixing of colors. The painting retained the effect of a live brushstroke and a deliberate naivety of the image, which gives it a light, almost illustrative mood. The painting is made with acrylic on thick paper in 1:1 format and immediately attracts attention with its bright color palette and characteristic, slightly naive manner of execution. What went well? The main advantage of the work is its sincerity and energy. The artist managed to convey the mood of the scene. The girl looks lively, relaxed, which creates a feeling of warmth and simplicity. The color scheme of the hair and t-shirt contrasts well with the cold blue and brown background, highlighting the main character. The overall composition is also well built. The viewer's gaze is immediately fixed on the face and the movement of the hand with the glass. Errors and weak points. The anatomy is somewhat distorted. For example, the right hand looks unnaturally short, and the wrist is angular. The shoulders are tense as if constrained. The face is conveyed schematically. The eyes and nose are located slightly asymmetrically, which may be an artistic device, but here it looks more like a construction error. The table and background elements are drawn in a simplified form, without depth and perspective, which makes the space of the painting seem flat. What could be added or removed? It would be worthwhile to enhance the elaboration of the background, add details to the interior. For example, more obvious textures of the walls, furniture, or windows, so that the atmosphere of the place sounds deeper. It is also necessary to more carefully work out the shadows and light spots on the body and objects. This would add volume. Perhaps it was worth removing or reworking some secondary elements. For example, a drawing on a blue background in the depths of the scene, as they distract attention from the main character, style, and atmosphere of the painting. The work is done in a primitivist, almost childish style, with an emphasis on color and mood, and not on the accuracy of forms. The atmosphere is light, slightly naive, with a hint of warmth of urban everyday life. This is a kind of sketch of a moment from life. Who will find this painting interesting and why? The painting may be of interest to lovers of naive art, collectors of works in the style of art brut, as well as those who value sincere, emotional images, without claims to academic accuracy. It will find a response from viewers who are more interested in the feeling and mood of the scene than in its technical perfection.